Race fans, it's time for those most famous words in all of sports. Please welcome driver of the number 5 Aero Electronics Honda for Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports, the winner of this year's Grand Prix of Louisiana, the mayor of Hitchtown, your own James Hinchcliffe, to give the command.
Hey, Toronto, are we ready to get this race going? In that case, drivers, start your engines.
Engines fire, and that would have been tough for Hinch too, because he would dearly love to be on this Verizon IndyCar Series grid for his home race. Let's head to the grid. Here's Jan.
And Will Power is feeling a little numb right now, but he is numb by design. He's received a shot in that thumb that Lee mentioned was fractured at Detroit. But maybe he's just caught a break. Because they're now going to go with a single foul restart, he doesn't have Simon Pagenaud next to him. He has to protect that thumb. And Kevin, that might be a big break for him because Pagenaud will be challenging him.
Well, they certainly have some very well-documented tangles in the past. Fierce rivals now trying to play nice as teammates. But Simon Pagenaud isn't thinking about Will Power. He wants a result. Just 11th point with one podium in his first season for Team Penske. He wants to survive to get to the second half of that race game.
Kevin, it's been 7 years since Graham Rahal won his one and only Verizon IndyCar Series race. But this year may be his best shot to get his second. He's a leading Honda, sitting 5th in points after 2 podiums and another 5th place. But if you ask him the difference this season, it's the guys right here in pit lane. Robin?
Here's some numbers you're not going to believe. Ryan Hunter-Reay starts 16th. He's 13th in the points. He hasn't led one lap in 2015. As he said in our report card segment, this has been a disastrous season, a dismal season. We got to turn it around somewhere. What better place to start than Toronto in the rain?
And he really does need to, doesn't he, Robin? He's won here. He knows how to see that checkered flag first. We wish Ryan Hunter-Reay all the best. Quick reminder for you not to miss a chance to get in on Honda's fastest seat in sports sweepstakes by entering at shophonda.com. I know that you see this in each and every Verizon IndyCar Series broadcast in the Honda 2-seater. Stephen Wong from Mississauga, Ontario is our lucky winner today. Stephen, I'm not sure, can you hear us?
Oh my gosh, that's fun.
And we just decided to spice things up a little bit with your driver, Martin Plowman, to make it wet, make it a little greasier, and make it a little more exciting. Enjoy the ride.
Hey, guys.
There he is.
Oh, that's fun.
I bet it is. And we've seen this happen before, that's for sure. And simply by Stephen logging on to shophonda.com, he won the opportunity to start today's race riding along with IndyCar driver Martin Plowman. So Stephen Wong, well done, and you can get in on that. A reminder that no purchase is necessary. And I love these close-up shots of the track. It just shows us how greasy, how treacherous it is. And there you have it. Power on our Mother's Polish starting grid. It's an all Penske front row, but remember, they will start single file. Good idea, bad idea?
Well, I think it's a good idea. I think they need to get these guys going, limit the spray to the drivers. Visibility is going to be important for the first couple laps, and that's going to be the most important thing, is that these guys can get spread out a little bit, get the race going, and hopefully stay green. You see Montoya on the second row. Dixon, he's a big charge in the championship.
Further back here we are on row 3, Sebastian Bourdais alongside Filippi, but look at this, is it also Chevy, 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 Chevy. A lot of Chevys up the front. That's going to change a little bit further back. Here is Takuma Sato, look, the first of our Honda runners with a 59.950. But again, guys, remember what we were talking about earlier on. If that rain does come back, watch for that Honda Aero package to start working at its best.
As we let you enjoy to pick out where your favorite driver is seated as far as the Mother's Polish starting grid, Paul. Okay, you're starting here where Detroit winner Carlos Munoz is back on the 7th row. What do you do? There's going to be so much spray. It's going to be so tricky. You just got to dodge the bullets as they come your way.
Well, it's like Roger said, and I said in the pre-race, you got to keep it on the track, but keeping it on the track is harder to do than just saying it. So he did a fantastic job in Detroit. As we see Connor Daly, another guy that did a fantastic job in the rain in Detroit. He's got a good shot at moving forward, as well as Gabi Chavez.
Tristan Vautier is back in the Dale Coyne entry, along with Rodolfo Gonzalez as well, back on the 12th row of the grid. You were just listening to the voice of Paul Tracy, the only Canadian to have ever won this race, and he has done it twice. Connor Daly will give us this on-board view aboard the Arrow Schmidt-Peterson machine with thanks to Lucas Oil. And we heard from Connor in our IndyCar Live Verizon Countdown. So hopefully he can come up with another result like he did in Detroit for his campaign. We wish him well. How about Charlie Kimball? He gives us this Levemere view. This is what his onboard looks like as one of 4 of Chip Ganassi Racing's cars. We switch over to Joseph Newgarden, of course, the Barber Motorsports Park winner. And Joseph gives us this view via Verizon. There are 3 black cars in today's race, incidentally, and Joseph has a big fluorescent yellow roll hoop, so he'll be easy to spot. Graham Rahal, with thanks to Fight SMA, will give us this view. How well will he be in the mix? We'll find out. He runs well on road and street circuits, that's for sure. And Tony Kanaan, with thanks to NTT Data, will give us this view. Can TK bring up his first win on the streets of Toronto? We will find out. And Simon Pagenaud, the Verizon streaming car. And a quick reminder that it's all about adrenaline on demand. Download the IndyCar 15 mobile app and get amazing live streams from in-car cameras and a whole lot more. As you always know, it's only from Verizon. So while we see some spray on those onboard lenses, just wait and see how stable and steady this weather is. And the promising thing there, Steve, is that we're on the back end of that. It has already, the majority of that cell has already moved through.
Yeah, there it is. You can see green is rain and green moving over to the right of the shot. There's downtown Toronto there. So again, it's going to be crucial now for the guys to stay out of trouble and then wait for that track to dry. And Paul, as you know, the all-important question from the strategist and the driver, when to make the shift from wet tires to dry tires.
Well, and also the key as well, as we talked to Tim Cindric, he said, you know, the most important thing is not the... There's as Cindric talks just now. The most important thing is not softer springs or stiffer springs. It was gear ratios. They have different gear ratios for the rain. They're on much shorter gears because you're going slower on the straight. If it dries and you've run those rain gears, you'll be out of gear, and a guy who with dry gears will have a huge speed advantage on the straightaway.
Folks, just think about this. They're on public roads, they're on concrete, they're on asphalt, there's manhole covers, they're in parking lots. It is a mixed surface, to say the least. This corner here is quite a tricky one as well. This track is a beautiful blend of speed, tight corners. Oh, and look at that Pagenaud. The rear end steps out already. This is Indy Toronto. It's round 10 and the green flag flies. Will Power, the defending series champ, hits turn 1. Here comes Montoya having a look, trying to stay out of the spray of Pagenaud.
You can see Montoya already using an alternate rain line. He's avoiding that concrete. And you'll see a lot of guys run on the concrete, and you'll see them try to avoid the concrete. As we come down to the back straightaway, look at the spray off of these cars, and we'll see in turn 3 how many guys take the wide line or run across that ice slippery concrete.
And this is very much, Steve, an exploratory lap, so to speak, to Kumasato on the inside there of Elio Castro-Neves. We ride with Tony Kanaan. Have a listen. Tiptoe, tiptoe. Whoa!
Sato around the outside, trying to make that move. We have a couple cars spun here at the end of the straightaway.
That's
your man Coletti
and Tristan Vautier.
And they got going, so no yellows, which is good.
Yeah, they
keep
got
this
going.
thing moving.
And that's just what we were talking about, isn't it? This exploratory lap. Again, you've got to just stay out of trouble and keep picking out that drying line. Hopefully a drying line, but you can lose the race so easily on that first lap. You ain't going to win it.
Will Power, Simon Pagenaud, Juan Pablo Montoya, Scott Dixon. Through back to Sebastian Bourdais. So they're running as per qualifying at the moment.
And as long as the rain is not raining, this track will drive very, very quickly. They have massive amounts of downforce on these cars, and it will just suck the water off the track as we see Joseph Newgarden sideways coming out onto the long Lakeshore back straightaway. The downforce level, Steve, that they run will just suck the water right off the track.
How about that? Look at this. Luca Filippi's under pressure from Takuma Sato. He got by Elio Castro-Neves. Kanaan's had his hands full. Rahal almost lost it. Newgarden got a front row view of that. Here comes Ryan Hunter-Reay up the inside of Charlie Kimball. Did he get it done? As we look back, no, he didn't. Kimball hangs on to it.
Yeah, it's so tempting to take that inside line, especially around turn 1. And as Paul was describing earlier on, straight onto that ultra slick concrete, not the asphalt, and then the car just slides away. You've got to be very careful to pick your points if you're going to try and overtake maneuver around these first couple of laps.
Sato and Castroneves are still fighting from the green flag, so these guys all running nose to tail as we ride with Graham Rahal. You'll see the spray coming off the car in front, and that slipping, sliding, big bumps down here.
No pressure.
No pressure from behind. He's just looking at Kanaan up ahead. Jan.
And for Graham Rahal, he made a change in the morning warm-up to the car that they did overnight and said, now the car has come alive. He says, I feel like the car now has more, it's more forgiving. And in these kind of conditions, Paul, you need something that's forgiving because these cars are dumping all over the place. But Graham thinks he has something much better today than what he had yesterday.
Yeah, Jan, yesterday I was chatting to Graham about the balance of the car, and he was saying exactly that. Didn't feel happy in the car, felt like the back end of the car wanted to keep stepping out, and a little bit of it right there. Yeah, so not altogether a perfect car, but again, if the driver feels more confident with that setup, that's the way to go.
And you know, we were talking about earlier about these deflection on the front wings. And, you know, when you slow the cars down in these type of conditions, it seems as though, Steve, the Honda works a lot better than it does when they're really pushing to the limit trying to get the lap time.
The more you push these cars, and particularly with that Hunter-Reay, okay, the more it seems to me that those cascade elements, particularly on the front wings, start to flutter. And if they flutter, the air will become unattached, and you just downforce on the car.
So the running order hasn't changed. Power, Pagenaud, Montoya, Dixon, Bourdais, Felipe, Sato. Sato is the best Honda runner. What do you got here, PT?
Yeah, as we see the different lines here, Rahal's taking an outside line around this concrete, and you see Kanaan over here on the concrete. So that's two varying lines of how to get around in the wet.
Nice job. Everyone line astern. I'll tell you what, the conduct has been pretty impressive thus far, hasn't it? Nobody doing anything too wild. We did see an incident with Stefano Coletti a little earlier, and Tristan Vautier. They're down in 22nd and 23rd. And again, Rahal takes that wide line around the concrete patch. Kev?
Tony Kanaan is starting to challenge his old friend, Helio Castroneves. TK is one of those that loves the challenge of racing in the wet. Yes, it mixes things up a little bit. It makes it more random. But Kanaan thinks he has the opportunity to make something happen. He just wants to get back up in the championship. He's so far ahead with the program than they were this time last year. And remember how strong they finished the year last season to get up to 7th in the championship. Well, they're 8th right now, so he can maybe capitalize on that second place finish at Texas last year as we see Connor Daly go off.
Connor Daly down there at turn 3 as he works it back up and gets going again. Actually, it was later in the lap than turn 3. Let's see what happened to Connor Daly in the Schmidt-Peterson machine. Looking for a good result today.
Looked like he just locked the front tires because the rear tires were still rolling over, so he probably locked the fronts, realized he wasn't going to make the turn and would end up in the tires, went straight, spun it around, and got back going.
Connor drops back to 21st position. You know, we were talking about Tony Kanaan and his level of experience. TK has started his 243rd consecutive IndyCar Series race. Here he is. It's an Ironman effort. Nobody has that kind of record in the history of American open wheel racing.
You can see as these guys are running, there's a groove now starting to come into the track. It's allowing them to negotiate the track a lot easier as he's chasing on his compatriot here, the guy he's raced his whole career with, Castroneves. They always seem to be racing against each other since they were kids.
So far, so good. A couple of minor incidents, but it's been a pretty smooth start on a tricky day in Toronto. You're watching NBCSN's coverage of IndyCar, brought to you by Fight SMA. Learn more about the fight against childhood disease, spinal muscular atrophy. Go to fightsma.org. Round 10 of the Verizon IndyCar Series here on the streets of Toronto continues, and you rejoin us as Juan Pablo Montoya is playing catch-up. He and Scott Dixon had an altercation, and it forced the championship leader to take evasive action. Here's what happened, PT.
Well, just a classic pass by Dixon down the inside. Montoya tried to pressure him, locked the tires just a little bit, said, I'm not going to make it. He flips that around, and I did this one time, pulls out right in front of his teammate. I did that one time and ran into the side of Tagliani, and we got in a fist fight in the pit lane. But very, very lucky to get away with that.
Yeah, well, there's that A for attitude from Montoya. He wants to get straight back in the race, doesn't he? He's waiting for no one.
I do have to say, you were nice to Tag. You didn't, you kind of...
He kept pushing on me.
He was pretty fired up. He was pretty fired up. So the order is you rejoin us as Power, Pagenaud, Dixon now third, Bourdais fourth, Filippi fifth, Sato the lead Honda in sixth, Castro Neves, and that's what the lead looks like. It's 5.5 seconds over Pagenaud from Power. Penske 1 and 2.
And you see that smart move by Pagenaud, getting some water on the tires. You can see the dry line forming now. He moved over to the right to get a little water on the tires. So now the dry line is coming. Marco, or they're talking about Marco might come to the pit lane, we're hearing reports, and be the first guy. I think that's a little optimistic.
It's going to be a very, very brave move if he does that. But there's your dry line form in PT. You're talking about right there. You can see it very clearly. Here we are, look.
That's a brave man right there.
Marco Andretti is the first to make the move to go. He's going to the Firestone alternate red tires and slicks. This is what helped make their race in Detroit. He finished second behind his teammate Munoz in race one. They made the strategy pay off before, and Marco now out trying to hang on in the slick conditions.
Good lad, Marco, good
the
lad.
Trick now is just being able to stay on the track, boy. This is going to be, look at that, just coming out of the pit lane, he nearly loses it, making this first corner on the concrete with slicks.
And look at this, race leader Will Power is not that far behind as Marco exits through turn one out onto Lakeshore Boulevard for the first time, racing on a track where his father, Michael, won 6 times in IndyCar Series competition. Here comes the race leader Will Power. This is going to give us a good example of those slicks, Steve, and the wet weather tires that Will Power's on.
Every engineer, every strategist will now be looking at those dry weather tire lap times versus the wet times now. Must be incredibly difficult. I mean, talk about being on ice, Paul. We talk about that in dry conditions around here, and we've talked about it on the wet weather tires in the rain. But when you've got the race leader right behind you, look how the car's squirming.
And the thing he has to do, he has to stay on the lead lap, because if he loses this lap, it's all for naught. So it's going to be crucial that he keeps Power behind him until he pits.
And let's not forget Marco's unbelievable run of late. Andretti has had 4 top 6 results in the last 4 races, including a podium. Marco is 6th in the championship. It's not like he's got nothing to lose. He's got plenty to lose here.
Marco, son, you've got to stay ahead of him. You've got to stay ahead of him. If this strategy is going to work for Marco Andretti, he must stay ahead of Will Power. Oh, but boy, oh boy, is it getting difficult.
Pretty sure that was the voice of Tim Cindric, Penske Racing's president, saying to Will Power, just be patient.
He's got to make Power go into the wet to pass him. Hog that dry line. Do not get off that dry line.
And Power is patient. Up into turn 3. Steady, steady. We're hearing...
Whoa!
Montoya's in. Yarn's there.
Juan Pablo Montoya is also going for, as we watch the action on the right side, that was a quick change. The difference between Marco Andretti and Juan Pablo Montoya, Montoya is going out on scuffs, and that will possibly give him a little additional grip right off the bat.
Marco now is starting to pull away, so these dry tires are coming in, the temperature's coming, and now he's pulled away from Power, and I think you'll see Power any minute come in.
Nice job, Marco, nice job. He's done exactly what the team would have asked of him. Be patient, be calm, get the tires up to temperature. Remember, in IndyCar, no tire warmers, so they would be cold. But now look at this dry line down the main straight here, Paul. It's all playing into those dry weather tires.
Guess who else has done it, guys? Luca Filippi did it. Ryan Hunter-Reay did it. Jack Hawksworth as well.
I think at this point, guys, in my opinion, Will Power's on the wrong tires.
Katie?
Sebastian Bourdais is a 2-time winner here on the streets of Toronto. He said the track's just not ready yet. They adjusted tire pressures and went for sticker reds.
Got some outside.
Castro Neves is the first of this group on the end to go, and he's going to go similar to Marco Andretti with the sticker alternate red Firestones. That seems to be the one they'll give you initially the most grip. Nice quick stop for Castro Neves, and I would imagine, just like Steve said, Will Power's going to have to make this choice pretty soon.
I'm telling you what, if Will Power doesn't come to the pit lane on this next lap, if it goes yellow, he'll go to the back of the field, and everybody has made their stop.
Yeah. It was a very, very brave move and a big gamble by Marco Andretti to go onto those dry weather tyres, but it has paid dividends.
He's been the Pied Piper. Everybody followed his move.
Rahal had his hands full there, didn't he? Fighting with the Dale coin entry of Tristan Vautier. Here comes Montoya. Montoya on the outside. Dry, slick tyres out in the wet. Montoya wheel to wheel with Rahal, and the Colombian does it. The points leader rounds Rahal up. The race leader is in.
He is also going with the sticker Firestone alternates. Not making any changes other than that. The action is furious out on the track, and Will Power now, where is he going to slot back in? Was this too late, or is this going to work for Will?
It looks good. It looks good, as you see up at the back there. Pagenaud comes out as well. Pagenaud definitely a lot closer to Will Power, considering at one point Power had a 5.5-second lead over the Frenchman. Let's ride with Pagenaud. Paul Tracy, that first lap out on dry weather tyres has got to be anxious.
And you saw Pagenaud make a small brake bias adjustment. You would obviously adjust the brake bias for the rain versus the dry. We saw him move the brake bias a half a turn. And look at this group of cars, just nose to tail after they've all pitted. Now their tires are up to temperature and it's a fight.
Put on the dry line, you know what to do.
It's the voice of Brad Goldberg, the engineer, the race engineer of Charlie Kimball. You know what to do, he says. Charlie's been having a terrific season in 2015. Raced incredibly well at the Indianapolis 500, Texas as well.
Well, they're using the curbs now. They've gone back to on the concrete. They're climbing the curbs, so they've got enough trust in the tires that are up to temperature now and start using this concrete patch now. Getting on the gas, we've got a dry line onto the back straightaway. This is good stuff.
Yeah, Will made it round. Pagenaud made it round turn one. But again, Paul, as you say, coming down into turn one on these tyres, that inside line on that concrete, it just looks like ice.
For the Penske pair up front, Power and Pagenaud. No immediate stress. They've got a healthy lead over Scott Dixon in third, Bourdais fourth, and Luca Filippi in fifth. NBC Sports is your home of motorsport, and we're pleased to say that NASCAR returns to NBC July 4th weekend live from Daytona with the Sprint Cup Series Coke 0400 powered by Coca-Cola. And it all begins July 4th with the Xfinity Series Subway Firecracker 250 here on NBCSN. We welcome you back to Toronto. Lee Diffie, Paul Tracy, Steve Matchett with you here in the booth. Jan Beekes, Katie Hargett, Kevin Lee, Robin Miller working pit road on an exciting day in Toronto. Why is it exciting? Mixed weather conditions, mixed track conditions, and it can do this kind of stuff to you. Even for someone like three-time Indy 500 winner Helio Castroneves.
Very, very lucky there. He got on the damp part of the track, lost the rear end, touched with Sato, lost a couple positions, but look at Pagenaud. He was about 3-4 seconds behind Power before the stop, and he's hunting him down.
I think that time spent behind Marco Andretti initially, Steve, may have brought Power back a little bit to Pagenaud, but the largest margin was 5.5 seconds. Pagenaud's right with Power.
Yeah, but as the track starts to dry out, it makes me wonder the different setups that may be on these two cars. You know, it's only that little, a couple of pounds different or so on the springs, maybe a slightly softer, stiffer roll bar. I'm going to suggest here that perhaps Pagenaud has opted his setup towards more of a dry setup than the rain setup, and as the track starts to dry, Will is starting to lose pace now relative to the cars behind.
And the very interesting thing about this is that we found out in qualifying that this weekend, Simon Pagenaud has been allowed to kind of do his own thing with his engineer, Ben Bretzman. He says, I have a few artifacts, as he calls it. In other words, little details on the car that he used to like with previous teams that he hasn't done with the Penske model. But now they said, okay, we need to make you comfortable. Well, they have. And you can tell by the way he's aggressively taking this car around the track. He's closed the gap to Power, and he's now happy with the Street Core 7 and just made a change. The left hand was making changes on those anti-roll bars that Paul was just talking about.
And this morning, Steve, Paul, and myself had a very interesting conversation with Team Penske president Tim Cindric, who said, listen, when Simon began his tenure with the team, Tim said, look, just take time to settle in. If you get results, good results straight away, that's going to be a bonus, but it's going to take some settling time. You're with Power, you're with Montoya, you're with Castroneves. They're part of the furniture around here. Even though Jan is relatively new to the Penske organization, they know how our policies and procedures work. So just take your time. Simon, I think, wanted to come into the drive of his career and just start bringing those results. They haven't come, but now Simon realizes he's now eased into the team and those results are coming.
And I certainly know how he feels, because when I came into Team Penske, was teammates with Rick Mears, Emerson Fittipaldi, and you know, it was what Cindric said at all. Cindric said, you know, he just doesn't know where he stands in Roger's eyes, where he lies, and that takes a little bit of time. It takes some wins, and you know, I was certainly, when that win comes, you'll be the apple of Roger's eye.
So that's first and second. Back in third is Bourdais. Dixon is fourth for Lippi. Sato is the best Honda runner in sixth. And then there's been a terrific scrap involving Graham Rahal and Helio Castroneves, Tony Kanaan and Montoya. Let's take you back a few moments ago. Check this out. On board with Rahal. Look how close they get. Watch this. Ooh. Down into three, and that has been going on lap after lap after lap, and Helio is not giving in at all. Rahal is putting up a dogged performance. He's very determined.
Rahal right on the gearbox, the car ahead, but again, I think we're into that situation. Just starting to lose the front wing. Gets close, gets too close, and then the air just washes away on the front wing. You've got to pick your moment, Paul, but when you want to make those overtaking maneuvers, you've got to just do it. You can't afford to hang around too long, because you'll start to lose that front wing you get understeer on the car.
When you think of the guys that Graham Rahal's fighting with here, he's got Montoya up in front there, Helio Castroneves, and then Kanaan. Think how many race wins there are that he's surrounded with, that he's battling with.
Yeah.
Sebastian Bourdais in the Hydroxy Cut entry for KVSH Racing, doing a nice job. He's in third place. He's a two-time winner here on the streets of Toronto. Things are looking good for the Frenchman.
Jimmy Vasser is not only a team owner for Sebastian Bourdais, but you're also calling the race for Seabass today. Jimmy, what's the word on the radio for him today?
He's pretty comfortable. You know, we went to some used red tires that had some laps on them, so you know, they may fall off a little earlier than a new set. So we're trying to have him conserve the tires. He's done a good job, moved up to third, so probably going to be 2 more stops.
He was concerned this morning about the wet surfaces and how slick this circuit is. Is he happier now that it's starting to dry out?
You know, he's pretty happy, but he's pretty darn good on all surfaces. So you know, he's always got something a little bit to complain about, but he's a great champion.
Thanks, Jimmy.
All right.
I said to Sebastian Bourdais earlier this weekend, hey, you were born and raised in Le Mans. Today, this weekend, was the running of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. He and his dad have competed in it multiple times. I said, does it bother you that you're here when you could be running there in your hometown? He said, in the early
Right
days...
there, it's good pace. That's right at the leader pace. -6 plus 3.2. Keep it up.
He said in the early days it did. You know, occasionally if I was involved in a program and I had to say no to Le Mans and yes to IndyCar racing, he said, but now this is my focus. He said, it's just nice that I know what's going on in my hometown.
Well, he's done all the experiments. He's been to Le Mans. He's been to Formula One, and he realizes, you know, this is his home and this is where he's going to make his living, and I got to make the best of it.
And he is the focal point of today's Chevrolet driver profile. Sebastian Bourdais in the Hydroxycut entry. Hydroxycut's corporate headquarters are here in Toronto. So it's a huge day for him and for Jimmy Vasser, for Sully, James Sully Sullivan, and the whole team involved at KBSH Racing. Kevin Kalkoven, everybody, all hands on deck. They're trying to get a good result for Bourdais, again, to make him a two-time winner in 2015. Kev?
Well, we know Takuma Sato, as we're watching, likes the wet. He got by Helio Castroneves early on. He's picked up another spot, running 6. Larry's talking to his driver, Larry Foyt, on the stand. So, do you go wet setup or did you go more drive? It might make you even better later in the race.
Kind of in the middle, you know, something that would work in both situations. So, right now the car looks pretty good. Just got to see how long the red tire lasts for us.
And you've got 2 more stops to come, right?
Yeah, it'll be 2 more stops.
All right, we'll see them come in on black tires the next time, and they have 1 more set of reds for the final stint as we continue to watch this battle for the lead.
How about this? Power and Pagano, the friends who became rivals, who have now become teammates. This is good stuff. Team Penske 1 and 2. Power, the reigning series champion, up against the new man inside Team Penske who wants to make his mark.
Certainly had their drama last year when they were not teammates, they were friends. Power punted Pagano off. I don't think Pagano has ever really let that go as he's making a move here.
Oh, here
he's making a move, but he's going to make him go to the wet. Can he do this from the outside? Outbreaks him.
Deep, deep, deep into turn 3. And maybe too deep. Pagano just pulls it back on the line.
Power nearly lost the back of the car. He snapped oversteer.
So one thing you may have noticed in our broadcast today that is not visible, that we sometimes show you, is the pushes to pass. The teams, the drivers get 10 of them. It gives them an extra boost of about 50, 60 horsepower. This weekend, IndyCar deciding they are not going to make it visible to us, to you, or to the other teams. Inside the individual and respective teams, they will know how many they've got left. They can communicate that to the drivers. However, Derek Walker, the president of competition and operations for IndyCar, said, look, I think that they're using it too defensively. And he said, I want to make it a little bit more intriguing and more interesting, Jan, just to spice it up a little bit for these guys.
Boy, and this is spicing the racing up, isn't it? Pagano right on the gearbox of Will Power again, ahead. You've got to make the move, though. Don't get in the wash and turbulence and ruin that front wing. Drop back again. There it is. Paul, it's so difficult. You can see it's so close and then just cannot pull it off.
The overtake. Save the overtake.
The rear of Will Power's car is stepping out more and more, lap by lap, corner by corner.
Let's go down to Team Penske with Jan.
And Tim, you're just making those calls, telling him when he has someone on the outside. Are you on a full dry setup, or have you done a bit of a mixture for Will Power?
There's been a bit of a mixture today. I mean, you couldn't go full dry, you couldn't go full wet with the way the conditions were.
That concerned you when Pagano was that close on the outside in turn 3?
Well, anytime you see the guys racing close together, regardless of who they are, it's concerning, but we'll see what happens.
All right, obviously very intense moments down here watching his 2 team cars battle for the lead.
The old golden rule, Paul Tracy. You can race, you can pass, you can't hit. And speaking of teammates, the other 2, Montoya and Castroneves, and this is in reverse. Remember before when Montoya went long there, and Helio Castroneves losing 2 positions. Back up for the lead, car 1, position 1. Power and Pagano, first and second, and Simon continues in that Avaya entry just to hassle and hound Will Power, the race leader, who's trying desperately to win for the 3rd time and reduce the points deficit to one Pablo Montoya. Back in a moment.
as Simon Pagenaud continues to battle with Will Power. The question would be, after hearing from Tim Cindric, does Simon Pagenaud have more of a dry setup? Because we heard that from Will Power's case, he kind of has a mixture between wet and dry. Check with their team, they said no. It turns out the setups on the cars are very similar. However, we feel as though the 22 team for Simon Pagenaud, we have the faster car right now. We just have to figure out how to get by Will Power. And I can tell you, a few moments ago, we got a fairly significant sprinkle, and it's starting to pick up a bit here on pit road. So the teams are going to be thinking, I don't really need to stop for fuel, but am I going to need tires soon?
Rain coming back. The size of the cell that pushed through here over Toronto from the west, from the southwest, was very large. We got lucky. Oh no, James Jakes is not lucky. The Schmidt-Peterson entry.
It is raining harder now, and it's getting slicker, but as you know, we go full course yellow now.
That was Joseph Newgarden in the pits, released and gone. Did he get wets on, or
I think he's on wets.
Went for wets.
I think he is on wets.
Munoz pits and goes back out on the slicks.
And the guy who was closing was Bourdais, was closing in on the leaders, but this these two guys making it before the yellow could really pay off for them.
Yeah. I think this is the wrong tire choice, though, Paul. I don't think those dry weather tires are going to be the way to go, especially if that rain picks up. We just saw a fairly significant slide from Will Power as the back end of the car went away.
I can tell you that we've got confirmation from the pits that Newgarden, along with Munoz, on slicks. So let's have a look. This is what happened to James Jakes to cause this first full course yellow.
Just a lock up of the front tire, and you're not going to make the corner. And not any damage there, just bounced off the tires. He just stalled it and needs to get started.
Yeah. If you've never been to the Exhibition Place circuit here in Toronto, that run out of turn 4 up to turn 5 is a lot steeper than what it seems on TV, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is, and very bumpy as you level out on top and hit the braking zone. There's a bunch of bumps there, and you can see he locked up the inside tire. The home ultra team there to start him up with the onboard starter, pull him out, and away he goes.
The whole Metro safety crew team are best in the business, as we mentioned earlier in IndyCar Live, presented by Verizon. The guys and gals who saved James Hinchcliffe went to the rescue at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and if you've just joined us, Hinch is actually here on site with the Schmidt-Peterson team and seeing fans and friends and family and everybody wishing James Hinchcliffe well, recovering from those horrendous injuries and that very scary crash in the lead up to this year's Indy 500. So the James Jakes situation taken care of there at turn 5, and our first and only yellow, full course yellow in this race thus far, as we fast approach lap 30 of this 85 lap event. It has been a terrific fight up front between Will Power and Simon Pagenaud, racing for Team Penske. So pits are still closed, in case you're wondering why nobody dove for pit lane just then. They're packing them up behind the Honda safety car. And it has been an interesting race, to say the least. Hey, one thing, if you've got a very watchful eye, just to the left, to camera left here, you may have noticed a change in the local landscape. There it is. There is a huge hotel and condominium complex that's being built there, just a little bit down from where this camera angle here is, right at the Prince's Gates, and it has certainly changed the landscape. That should be completed by this time next year when we come back to race at the Indy Toronto. Jan?
And Lee, talking about changing landscape, the situation for Joseph Newgarden and for Carlos Munoz, they caught a great break. It looks like everyone is set up here on pit road to go with slicks. Because they have gone with slicks and beat this by 1 lap, they are going to cycle through to the front, maybe not all the way to the front, depending on who else may not pit. But this is really going to play in their favor. It looks like everyone up and down pit road is going to the slicks. All right, now for Helio Castro Neves, he had some interesting radio conversation just a moment ago.
How's the car?
Well, it's too slow in the straightaway.
Yeah, 10-4.
It's pushed turn 3 and lose some of the corners.
Overwhelming theme there was too slow on the straightaways.
I wonder if he put that rain gearing in, which would be a shorter top gear. Could be on the eliminator. We're going to see the guys come to pit lane, and this is really going to help Munoz and Newgarden will cycle them to the front, and track position in a race like this is everything.
Here we go. Let's start with this round of stops. Katie Hargett, your first up.
Sebastian Bourdais' team specifically asked him about the conditions and let him make the call on what tires he wanted. He said he wanted a set of scuffed reds and a little bit of front wing if they have time. Jan?
And now this is going to be a battle of position. The front runners, of course, Will Power right behind Simon Pagenaud. But keep your eyes open. Let's see who, of course, Will Power gets away first. But Pagenaud might lose a spot. This is very close between Bourdais and Dixon. Wow, what a group of cars at pit exit.
Dixon and Bourdais were wheel to wheel. Bourdais wins that race off pit road. Power does as well. And cycling up to the front, Castro Neves, Newgarden, and Munoz, who did not pit that time around. Of course, Newgarden and Munoz in before the yellow. Castro Neves stayed out.
I tell you what, I've been in that position with Bourdais at the end of this pit lane, and he was pretty kind to Dixon and not take his wing off like he did to me.
Good crowd on hand here at Exhibition Place, and they're witnessing a special one today. Here we go, back in Toronto in time to see the green with Helio Castro Neves, who did not come into the pits on that time around. Helio, your new race leader, look at this. Oh, Gonzalez on the inside of Carlos Munoz, and almost a collision at turn one on the restart.
Nothing to lose for him. He's going for it. Power and Pagenaud got to really be careful with this guy because he wants to show well and has nothing to look at. Pagenaud back and forth, over under, trying to make a move.
Power just positioning that #1 Verizon Chevrolet perfectly to make life hard for Simon Pagenaud. But they're going to try and work through this traffic. Gonzalez, Munoz, Newgarden, and up ahead, the race leader, the new race leader, Helio Castro Neves.
Yeah, Simon Pagenaud is just working that wheel left, right, trying to find a way through.
Oh, whoa, determined is the 22 of Pagenaud, and he's got another Frenchman behind him. Sebastian Bourdais would dearly love to be a three-time winner here on the streets of Toronto, so he's pushing his cause right now.
He is. Bourdais is right on the gearbox of Pagenaud, thinking if Pagenaud's concentrating too much on Will Power ahead, I'm going to make hay while the sun in this case isn't shiny. I'm gonna make the moves on Pagenaud.
During the ad break, Paul Tracy said, I like the strategy from Helio Castroneves. Tell us why, PT.
Well, now that I think about it, I didn't realize that he didn't pit before that yellow, so he's really hung himself out here, and it's going to have a lot of luck. But I think the two guys that have the best chance here, if they can just stay off of each other, is these two guys, because they pitted and they have everything.
Munoz has got his hands full with fighting Newgarden and looking at Gonzalez in the rearview mirror. Then he's got the hard-charging Power and Pagenaud forcing their way through. How well can it go for Newgarden, who has not done much in all due respect since winning at Barber Motorsports Park?
Yeah, when Newgarden came out of the pits, I wondered whether or not he'd taken those wet tyres, but he hasn't. He is on dry weather tyres.
And thankfully so.
And thankfully so.
That rain's gone away.
Yeah, because it was an absolute masterstroke, because it just started to spit when these guys came into the pits.
Just goes to show you the track position is so key. It locks up Gonzalo. This could be interesting on the straightaway, Kevin.
And you mentioned that he hasn't had much luck since the Barber win. 3 of the 5 since then, 20th or worse. Andy O'Gara, one of the team managers with the team, said that really what they've been doing is just trying to survive. They've had a multitude of crashes between the 2 team cars, and look at the inside. It's Power getting around there. One of the coin cars, Gonzalez, for a position. Gonzalez is on a different strategy. But it's been simply a matter of survival, and they haven't been able to work on the pace of the cars, but they have felt good here this weekend. The CFH team has had good street course setups all weekend, and they were relatively confident coming into this race today.
That was a savvy move from Will Power, putting a roadblock between himself and Simon Pagenaud. Now it's going to make life hard for the driver of the 22 Avaya entry. Pagenaud now has to get by Gonzalez, keeping in mind he's got Bourdais, Dixon, Felipe, Montoya all charging down on him.
He can't really afford to mess around with Gonzalez too long, because that will allow Will Power to stretch away from him again, and he'll have to do everything all over again and chase him back down.
Yeah.
He's got a good. I think he's going to have a good run here.
Out onto Lakeshore Boulevard one more time, and look at how effectively Power has gapped Gonzalez and putting that distance between himself and Simon Pagenaud. Pagenaud, in turn, has bought himself some real estate from Bourdais. Up into turn 3. Now the Hydroxy Cut machine catches up to the Penske entry. This is a good scrap, and all of these guys in this mid-pack, except Gonzalez, if you take him out of it, they're all on a very similar strategy. Newgarden and Munoz have 3 laps less fuel than the others. And Helio Castroneves is on a strategy all of his own. He's building time, but he needs to, Steve.
Yeah, he really does. He's got to try and figure out that strategy. At the moment, he's running up the top. It is, but where do you make that pit stop? Behind him, Newgarden doing a fine job on second, and again, just making the perfect pit stop, but not getting onto those rain tyres as I thought he was going to. But further down this order, how does Pagenaud make that move now on Gonzalez? It was a great move by Power to get around Gonzalez and try and make some room. And Bourdais is right on the transmission of Pagenaud. Pagenaud's now caught between a rock and a hard place.
Riding with Ray Hall. He sits 12th, chasing fellow Honda driver Takuma Sato.
And now look at the front wing vibrate on this car, Paul. As we're running in drier conditions and the cars are getting faster, all of a sudden we're starting to see that fluctuation again.
Oh, contact there between Charlie Kimball and Stefano Coletti. It was just a little clip on the front wing. Coletti gets through, and so too does Marco Andretti. You're watching NBCSN's coverage of IndyCar, brought to you by Steak and Shake, home of the original steak burger and proud sponsor of number 15, Graham Rahal. NBCSN's coverage of the Verizon IndyCar Series. We welcome you back to Indy Toronto. And as we return, we are under our second full course caution. There's debris on the track. Stefano Coletti for the KV Racing Technologies team. And that's part of his carbon fiber bodywork. There is the Monegasque driver who, to be fair, has had a rather disappointing first IndyCar series. Now, this is the first of two incidents. He collides with Charlie Kimball, front left wing end plate and Charlie Kimball's rear right tyre, and this in turn, Steve, punctures Kimball's tyre and sends him to pit lane. This was a few moments ago.
Yeah, Charlie Kimball, and then we see Pagenaud and Gonzalez getting into each other as well.
That was Simon saying, PT, hey, by the way, I'm just letting you know, I'm not going to sit behind you for much longer.
I tell you what, it's very risky to knock stuff around with these new front wings. They're so sensitive, as we see Coletti.
And there's Coletti, bang, straight in, and this did the big damage. The major damage to Coletti's car is the right rear suspension is broken. And as the car came into pit lane, you saw the mechanics looking at it, but it's all around the right rear. I think broken drive shaft or broken steel wishbones, but that right rear took a real clout.
For a guy who won in GP2 Series competition some 8 times, he's shown very little in the Verizon IndyCar Series, and the team would have hoped for more from the man from Monaco, and he ends his first appearance in Toronto like that with a rather heavy clout. So, Helio Castro Neves, who leads the field, decided to roll the dice, play a different strategy than others. We'll see if this is going to work out for the Brazilian.
Yeah, the question is, how far can you push?
We're almost halfway.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jan?
Well, I think this caution came at exactly the wrong time for Helio Castro Neves. He has to come on board here and get some more of that Sunoco E85. He has no choice. Everyone else is going to stay out. He had about a 7-second gap, and the field was strung out, so he may have maybe slotted in about midfield. Now he's going to go right to the back, exactly what he did not want today. They're going to take the opportunity to go ahead and put some sticker Firestone alternates on here. Again, he's going to lose all of his track position. And now for Castro Neves and for the captain, Roger Penske, they have to think, okay, well, that gamble didn't pay off. How can we pull another one later on? Because he's going to need a miracle now to get to the front.
I wonder what plan B was. I kept hearing Roger say plan B, plan B, plan B. So maybe we can get some information.
Good job there, buddy. Sorry.
But not the best scenario.
Rodolfo Gonzalez, who you have to say, even though he was off strategy as well, he did a pretty good job of hanging with the big guys.
Yeah.
Made life hard for Will Power and Simon Pagenaud for a number of laps in the Dale Coyne entry. But a decent performance there as we circle under yellow. James Jakes, who had an incident, caused the first yellow, also coming out of pit lane with Gonzalez there as well. So we will regroup here. Indy Toronto round 10, and a first-time winner in 2015. Joseph Newgarden is the leader again.